Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. November 7th, 2017.
The Kuhner Report, presented by Kelly Financial Services. This is the Kuhner Report.
Okay, my friends, jam-packed show for you today. You don't want to miss a second of it. It is election day here across the country, but especially here in Massachusetts. Very pivotal local elections. If you live in Salem, it is molto importante. Get out and vote. Vote against the Sanctuary City bill. Vote against Kim Driscoll, the current incumbent mayor and Moonbat, and vote for Paul Prevey. If you live in Lynn, vote for Judy Kennedy. She is the last line standing between you and becoming a third world hellhole. Do not vote for Mr. Magoo, Tom McGee. It will be the end of Lynn as you know it. Vote for Judy Kennedy. Okay, in fact, we're even going to have Paul Prevey on at 1:35. You don't want to miss it. A lot of stories to talk about. But let me ask you right out of the bat. We're going to be discussing this at 2:35. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Bill Kelly Financial Services. Should we ban the sale of tobacco here in Massachusetts? I'm not kidding. Liberals now want to push this in city after city, town after town. They're going to start with Bridgewater. So my question to you is this. Should we now have prohibition against cigarettes and the sale of tobacco? In other words, ban them. If you believe the answer is yes, text the letter A to 680-680. If you believe the answer is no, text the letter B to 680-680. As always, you can vote online at WRKO.com. We're going to be touching on that story, discussing it at 2:35. But first, liberalism is a mental disorder. So as you know, in the wake of the massacre in Sutherland Springs, whereby a militant atheist, in another act of liberal terrorism, killed 27 people, the news media refused to count that poor baby in the womb, 8 months pregnant, who was also killed along with the mother and several of her children. I do. So the death toll to me is not 26, it's 27. 27 dead, 20 wounded in the deadliest mass shooting at a place of worship in American history. And before the bodies were even cold, as they were there lying on the ground in the First Baptist Church, already the calls were ringing out for gun control. In fact, listen now to Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough on MS Left BC. Roll it, Brittany.
Well, you know, back...
Protect themselves from being killed.
At church. At church. Right. Yeah, the answer is we all need to carry guns into Jesus's house of worship on Sundays. No.
Excuse us for wanting something better.
A place of peace.
Yeah, the Prince of Peace. Pack a pistol to go worship the Prince of Peace. You know, when I was in Congress with Harold, I was considered a strong Second Amendment supporter. Mm-hmm. And I was. I mean, I don't know, maybe 95% NRA rating. But they never came to me and said, we need you to do really, really stupid stuff right now. I mean, it's gotten so extreme. When George W. Bush ran in 2000, he supported increased background checks. He supported a ban on military-style assault weapons. He supported smart guns. He supported all of these things. And that was 2000 and 2004.
And yada, 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 yada. In other words, more gun control, more background checks, more banning of weapons, ban so-called assault weapons, ban AR-15, just ban. Just keep banning and don't stop banning. Okay, and that's all they were doing yesterday. That's all they were doing. They got up in the morning, and it was gun control all day, all night. Here is, to me, the most stunning thing, just to show you what ideology, what it does to you, how it blinds you. It has now come out that the shooter, Devin Kelly, was convicted, listen to this, of beating up his first wife, his first spouse, and assaulting their little infant stepson baby. In fact, he beat that baby so bad, he fractured the stepson baby's skull. Now, the first thing that came to my mind is, how the hell was this guy? You fracture an infant boy's skull? How the hell was this guy not put in prison for life? Okay, that to me is point number one. How this guy wasn't sentenced to life in prison is beyond me. But let that go. He was convicted. He spent 12 months in confinement. To me, that's a slap on the wrist, but again, let that go. He was then dishonorably discharged, which means because he was convicted of 2 crimes, beating up his wife, or his then wife, and fracturing the skull of his infant stepson, never mind being dishonorably discharged on top of it, he should never have been allowed to acquire a lawful gun permit. And the only reason why, listen to this, is because it has now come out that the Air Force bureaucracy forgot to notify the national database that this guy, this animal, had been convicted of beating his wife and fracturing the skull of his stepson infant. And then, of course, being dishonorably discharged. Had they simply notified the national database, he never would have been allowed to acquire a lawful gun permit. Ipso facto, he could never have acquired the guns. Ipso facto, he could never have committed the massacre. In other words, in plain English, had the bureaucracy just done its job, had we just enforced the existing gun laws on the books, none of this would have happened. None of it. This is not an opinion. This is not a point of contention or debate. It's a fact. In fact, it's an irrefutable fact. And I want you to think about these moonbats. Again, today's theme of the show, liberalism is a mental disorder. So, the very same people now want to empower, I want you to think about this, the very government and the very bureaucracy with even more power to regulate your life, control your gun rights, to ban even more guns, repeal even more of your Second Amendment rights, even though the very entity they want to empower cannot even enforce the current gun laws on the books. You see? That's liberalism for you in a nutshell. And so, had they not been so quick and so determined to politicize the murder of 27 people, running out with their talking points about gun control, ban guns, ban guns, ban guns, before we even knew the identity of the shooter, the motives of the shooter, how he acquired his guns, in other words, the basic facts. Had they not been so busy and so determined to politicize it, maybe they would realize in their little brains and their little bird brains, hey, we don't need more gun laws. This is not an issue of more gun control. We just need to properly enforce the laws that are already on the books. Now, apparently, they're going to have an investigation into the Air Force for why the Air Force bureaucracy did not notify the national database that this guy had been convicted of multiple crimes and had been dishonorably discharged, which means he should never have been allowed to get a permit in the first place. But this just begs the question. We have a completely inept and incompetent government that can't even do its basic functions, and you want to give it even more power? Furthermore, it's now coming out that according to multiple witnesses, because some people were wounded, but now they're talking. So people in the church that witnessed the massacre are now talking. It now appears that Devin Kelly ran into the church. He first shot the church from the outside. Then he came in and he yelled, "Everybody die, mother, forgive me, mother effer. Everybody die, mother effer." He then began to indiscriminately shoot people. In fact, according to the witnesses, one of the first victims he deliberately targeted were the babies and the kids. Yet the official line from the mainstream media and from law enforcement is that he did this because he had a grudge against the in-laws, that this was really a family dispute. Now, it appears he was estranged from his current wife. She was a former teacher at the First Baptist Church. Apparently his in-laws, his mother-in-law and father-in-law, who apparently had a lot of arguments with, he was a militant atheist. He hated their religious faith. They also attended that church. That is true. But, and I said this to Brittany when we do our pre-show prep. I said, Brittany, listen, I watch a ton of Investigation Discovery, the ID channel. I can't tell you, here, I'll give you the ID channel in a nutshell. Disgruntled wife is upset at the husband or the in-laws, goes to the house of the in-laws, kills the in-laws, and kills the husband. Or disgruntled husband, upset at the spouse, his wife, kills the wife, tries to kill the in-laws, but fails to do it. Whatever. In other words, when you're disgruntled at the in-laws or at your wife, you kill your wife. You kill your in-laws. You don't just go to a church and say, everybody die, mother effer, and start shooting at the kids first. And the cherry on the sundae, in terms of how bad this theory is, the in-laws weren't even there. So if the guy was so determined to get his in-laws, you know, he could go to their house, he could go to a place where he knew they would be, and then he would go boom, 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 and kill them. The reason why he targeted that church, it is now so obvious, it's as plain as the nose on everybody's face. He was a rabid, militant atheist. In fact, he was obsessed with hating Christians. He called Christians dumb on Facebook. He called them stupid. He called them the root of all evil. He went on and on about how he despised Christians and Christianity. This was not a man who killed because he had a grudge against his in-laws. This was a man who went into that church because it was a church. And his target were Christians because they were Christians. This was an act of liberal, left-wing, domestic terrorism. And the media is deliberately trying to suppress it, like they're trying to suppress Antifa, Black Lives Matter, that it was a Bernie supporter that targeted those congressional Republicans in Northern Virginia and almost killed Stephen Scalise. That Stephen Paddock deliberately targeted concert goers who were overwhelmingly Trump supporters and conservatives. Just like Rand Paul was physically assaulted and beaten up in his own house mowing his lawn. 5 ribs broken, lung contusions. He may not even return to the Senate for months. He almost died in that attack. Left-wing terrorism, liberal terrorism, is now becoming almost as big a threat as Islamic terrorism. And the media won't speak out against it because they are complicit. 617-266-6868. Your reaction next.
And now we have Southern Baptist churches getting shot up again. Had it been a radical Islamic terrorist with a beard named Muhammad,
that's easy.
That Washington would be melting down right now.
Well, no, you would be defending Islam, as you guys always do. That's what would be going on. Instead, you want to take away our gun rights because some left-wing terrorist decides to go after Christians and butcher them in a house of worship. And by the way, Joe, come on, let's be honest. Since when do liberals and left-wingers care about what happens in a church or Christians? You guys hate us, you always have, and you always will. You phony, you fraud, you. Josh in Framingham. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, first, Jeff, I've been reading the news and stuff. I haven't seen much that connects this guy to any left-wing organizations or anything. So when you throw out that he's a left-wing terrorist and stuff, it sort of makes me feel that you're in the same category as, say, Chelsea Handler or Elizabeth
Look, Josh,
Warren.
Can I be honest with you, Josh? Can I be honest with you? Really, honestly, if you're going to call this show, at least be witty in your put-downs. In all honesty, you're not even funny. Look, read his Facebook page. So, I don't know what kind of sources you're trying to cite. If you look at his Facebook page, it's all there. He was a militant atheist. His favorite show was his favorite network was CNN. He embraced almost every prominent liberal left-wing cause. I mean, I could run down the whole list. You even have texts and Facebook posts of his, which are absolutely sickening, and how he hated and despised Christians. Pure and utter Christian bigotry. So, to be honest with you, look, if you're going to call the show and debate me. But if you're going to stand there with these ridiculous little cheap shots, honestly, give me at least some wit. Otherwise, you're just wasting everybody's time. Eddie and Quincy. Go ahead, Eddie.
3 quick points. You stole my thunder on the first one. The government that wants us to protect us for guns screwed up. If you were a gun dealer, Jeff, and you did that, you'd be going to court.
Yes.
Number 2, there's nothing about these 2 heroes, the guy that had a legitimate gun and come out and shot him. Like you said, yesterday, most states will put him in jail. But if he hadn't stopped it, how many lives did he save?
Well, you nailed it, Eddie. Look, and thank you for that call.
Well, one more thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I meant to cut you off. Go, Eddie, go.
The Second Amendment was also put in there to protect us from tyrants, like these people were trying to do to us. And that's all I have to say.
Well, look, Eddie, you're completely right. And look, this is the core issue. If you really want to get into the Second Amendment, here's the core issue. The reason why we have the Second Amendment, and the reason why, by the way, the United States is almost unique in the world in never having a dictatorship, any kind of a dictatorship, is because our founding fathers said an armed citizenry is a free citizenry. And as long as the citizens are able to defend themselves, there will never be able to be a tyrant or a dictator or an authoritarian regime to ever take root on American soil. Now, you want to run down the list? Let's run it down very quickly. Mexico has had dictatorships. Brazil has had dictatorships. Okay, you don't like Latin America. England. Ask the Irish how the English were able to control the Irish for hundreds of years. They disarmed them. Ask the Scots how they were able to be controlled for hundreds of years. They disarmed them. Ask the Indians in India how the British Empire was able to rule them and slaughter them for hundreds of years because the Indians were disarmed. France has had numerous dictatorships. Germany, Adolf Hitler. Do I need to say more? Italy, Mussolini. Do I need to say more? I can go country after country. So one of the reasons why in America we have never had a dictatorship is because our citizens are armed. And by the way, this is not even unique to our founding fathers. This literally goes back to the time of Aristotle and Socrates, to Athens and the early republics, where they said if the citizens are armed, then they will be free, because the elites will not be able to impose military power over them. Every Jewish friend I know who survived the Holocaust or studied the Holocaust said the first thing Hitler did was disarm the Jews. Had Germany had a Second Amendment, there would have been no Holocaust. 617-266-6868. The latest on the Texas massacre. Let's take it now to Jackie Murphy. 12:38 here on the great WRKO. Okay, big election day across the country. Here in Massachusetts, pivotal local elections. If you live in Salem, please, you need to get out and vote against Kim Driscoll, the incumbent Democrat mayor. She is an absolute disaster. She has run Salem into the ground. Support Paul Prevey. Also, vote against their sanctuary city ordinance. Do not allow Salem to become a sanctuary city. If you live in Lynn, this is your last chance, your last stand. Vote for Judy Kennedy. She is the last line of defense against turning Lynn into a third world hellhole. Tom McGee will load up your city with tolls, and he will make it a sanctuary city. So please vote for Judy Kennedy and Lynn and against Mr. Magoo, Tom McGee. We're going to be discussing the elections at 1:35, newsmaker interview with Paul Prevey. At 2:35, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. We will discuss it in full. Should we ban tobacco? There is now a big push in Massachusetts to ban cigarettes and ban the sale of tobacco. Should we now have essentially prohibition for cigarettes in Massachusetts? If you believe the answer is yes, text the letter A to 680-680. If you believe the answer is no, text the letter B to 680-680. You can vote online at WRKO.com. The poll question, as always, sponsored by Bill Kelly Financial Services. Okay, the story that is now breaking is that, to everybody's shock and horror, Devin Kelly, the butcher, the man who masterminded and perpetrated the deadliest mass shooting at a place of worship in American history, was convicted of beating and assaulting his spouse, his first one, and their stepson, their infant little stepson. He fractured that little baby's skull. He was convicted on both counts. Instead of going to prison for a very long time, he got a lousy 12 years confinement and then a dishonorable discharge. The Air Force knew about it. Under the existing gun control laws, he should have been put into a national data bank and prohibited from getting a gun permit and getting his guns. But the massive government bureaucracy failed again to enforce the existing gun control laws, and so he was never put on the national data bank. Hence, he was allowed to get the gun permits. Hence, he was allowed to buy the guns. Hence, the massacre. And the very same liberals now want to empower this massive government bureaucracy that can't even enforce the current gun laws. They're so incompetent and inept to have even more power to ban even more guns. Liberalism is a mental disorder. I want you to listen now, who to me is one of the great heroes. And notice the liberal media doesn't want to showcase him very much. And this is Stephen Wilford, 55 years of age. He is a plumber. According to his daughter, she first noticed that Devin Kelly was dressed all in black. By the way, isn't it strange how he almost looks like an Antifa guy? Dressed in black with the skull mask, the whole thing. But let that go. Let that go. Dressed in tactical black with a skull white mask on his face. She noticed that he began shooting at the church and then entered the church. She then told her father, he is a former NRA instructor, he got his rifle out of his safe, and then he confronted the shooter. He apparently is a crack shot. He shot Devin Kelly in between his bulletproof vest. There was a gap. He shot, penetrated him, hit him on the side. Devin Kelly then ran into his SUV, Stephen Wilford then jumped into a pickup truck driven by Johnny Langendorf, and they gave hot pursuit. They eventually chased him down. According to police, Devin Kelly then took a bullet to the head and killed himself. Had it not been for this man, many, many more would have been massacred. Listen to him tell his story. Roll it, Brittany.
I didn't have any time because I kept hearing the shots one after another, very rapid shots, just pop, pop, pop. And I knew every one of those shots represented someone, that it was aimed at someone, that they weren't just random shots more than likely. I grabbed a handful of ammunition and started loading my magazine. And I'm trying to survey the situation, not knowing what's going on. And then I saw a man in a black tactical helmet with a dark shaded helmet on, and obviously looked to me like it was bulletproof vest. And he had a pistol in his hand, and we exchanged gunfire. He saw me, and I saw him, and I was standing behind a pickup truck for cover, and we exchanged. I'm like, it was surreal to me. It couldn't be happening. I could not believe it. We chased him down 539, and when we first started chasing him, he was out of sight.
Stop it right there for a second, Brittany. There's a bit more I want to play it. What I find incredible when I listen to him is, let's be honest, I know many people say, oh, I would do the same thing in a similar situation. Would you? Really? You know, a man has just shot up a church. There are bodies everywhere. People are dead. He's armed to the teeth. Most people's, and I'm not criticizing, it's a normal, natural, human, instinctive reaction, is what? Get under the desk. Take cover. Hide. This guy, when most people would be running away, ran to protect his neighbors, his friends. He was willing to lay down his life. He didn't have a bulletproof vest on. The shooter did. He didn't. And he confronts him right there in that parking lot in the church. And well, you know what I've noticed about real heroes? Look at the humility in his voice. He's not shooting his mouth off. There's no bravado. There's no braggadocio. He's not bragging and boasting. In fact, you can even hear it in his voice. He's almost hunted. Because in the back of his mind, he's thinking, had I acted sooner, I could have saved more. Had I gone quicker, I could have done more. I could have saved more. That's what he's actually thinking. I want you to listen to the rest, because it's extremely telling about really just what a special man he is. Roll it, Brittany.
And the man driving the truck was I found out later, his name is Johnny. He was driving at a high rate of speed, and we were trying to pass cars and catch up. And we were called 911, and we were talking to 911. I was scared for me, and I was scared for every one of them, and I was scared for my own family that just lived less than a block away. I'm no hero. I am not.
I'm going to do, we're going to do a very special radiothon, as we always do on Veterans Day this Friday. It's going to be at the Seaport, and I hope all of you can listen, and if you can donate, I would really immensely appreciate it for our disabled veterans. And let me tell you, every single disabled vet that I have met, and I'm telling you that I will meet this Friday because I've done this now so many times. There they are, legs gone, arms gone, whatever, quadriplegic, paraplegic, you wouldn't believe it, what these people go through. The brain damage, plates in their head, and they're heroes. You hear their stories. They threw themselves on a grenade. They took a bullet for one of their brothers in battle. All of them say, I'm not a hero. The real heroes say, I'm not a hero. And they get emotional, and they even admit to you, I was afraid. They're not these tough guys. You know, like these guys that are taking a knee. These guys that play in the NFL, big, macho, multimillionaire tough guys. Oh, I'm taking a knee. I'm fighting against racism. I'm a big, tough guy pumped up on steroids. Okay? They don't shoot their mouth off. They're like this guy. My heart was racing 100 beats a minute. I was afraid for me, for the guy in the truck, for my family, but I did what I had to do. He's a great American. He truly is. You want to know why I love the Heartland? That's why I love the Heartland. 617-266-6868 is the number. Larry in Belmont. Go ahead, Larry.
Jeff. The liberals are like facts, schmacks when they have an agenda to push. Now, a couple points, sir. I'm a born Catholic, raised Catholic. Not a very big churchgoer, but I did have to study theology for a year to get my degree at BC. Joe Schmo there, he's like the Prince of Peace. Every time he said it, you could hear the disdain in his voice. Now, I don't mean disdain for conservatives, disdain for Jesus himself. You could tell he hates referring to him that way.
Yes.
But if he studied Jesus a little bit more than when it was convenient for him to use in his clips, he would know that our Savior was not above flipping tables and whipping people who are being evil.
Yes, or being very angry. He was often very angry.
Exactly. So it just kills me. But as far as this goes, this plumber, yes, he is a hero. They will never acknowledge it, especially the fact that he's an NRA certified instructor. They can't acknowledge that. That goes against every agenda they have.
Well, Larry, look, you nailed it. And again, thank you for that call. Really good call, Larry. Look, just think about it. You got a guy who's an NRA instructor, who knows how to use a gun, who's a lawful, responsible gun owner, had his gun in a safe, and does exactly what guns are intended to do. The good guys with the guns stopped the bad guy with the guns. The media doesn't want to hear that story. And, you know, he's not in the military, but he's NRA trained, so he's a great shot. Look, I'm telling you, I go target practicing. To exactly hit a guy the way he did, in that little gap in his bulletproof vest, this guy's one hell of a cracker shot. This guy's one crack shot. And then to get in a car, I want you to think about this. Going 100 miles an hour, chasing a guy down who's got an arsenal, and you know there are bodies everywhere, the guts, the courage that it takes. By the way, I know I'm up against it, but you need to know this. You need to know this. Had Stephen Wilford, say it was my church, just for the sake of argument, that had been shot up like that, and he was one of my neighbors, had he taken out his gun and shot the killer and then gave high-speed pursuit in Massachusetts, he would be arrested today. He, the hero, would be behind bars and in handcuffs. Liberalism is a mental disorder. Russ in Boston. Go ahead, Russ.
Jeff, there is no question that there is no check and balance between our agencies and government. Our laws are selectively enforced. If you're properly connected, you get a free pass. Example, Hillary Clinton, and I wonder what the hell they have on Jeff Sessions that he doesn't push an indictment forward. There is no question, unless you are stupid and ignorant of history, all dictatorships, the first thing they do is take the people's guns away, and then they control them. And remember, our Revolutionary War started with the British going to conquer to get our guns and our gunpowder. And how do we beat them? We beat them in the bushes because we were armed.
Bingo. The rest, honestly, drop the mic, baby. There's nothing else to say. You nailed it. Verna in Arlington. Go ahead, Verna.
Hi there, Jeff. Thank you so much. wanted to add to your list, Armenian genocide, Turkish regime. Add that to your list, too. They disarmed the people for over 100 years. Second, I wanted to really give my condolences for Bill Kelly. I heard your program on Saturday morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
to all of them and all of you. I met him. I was there with Chris Toronto and Alan West when he gave those amazing things with you, and thank God for him and all of his people. Anyhow, beyond that, too, I wanted to mention...
Verna, you broke up on us.
Look at the timing.
Go ahead.
Look at the timing of the... Trump goes on this major trip, and this shooting happens. I don't know. There's something suspicious about that. The other thing, too, when you say mental disorder, there's also spiritual roots going on here, too. I don't know if you can hear me still.
No, I can, Verna. Look, you're completely right. Look, liberalism, really, if you really want to know what it is a form of moral and intellectual bankruptcy. It is a fake religion. And gun control is one of the key tenets of their catechism. So it's like you're dealing with religious fanatics. So it doesn't matter what happens, what you're witnessing, what reality is. It's gun control, gun control, gun control. So think talking to a Islamic fundamentalist is the same thing as talking to a liberal fundamentalist. Reality doesn't matter. Bill in Newton. Go ahead, Bill.
Jeff, if you believe there's a conspiracy afoot for world government, the only barrier between world government is gun control and the Constitution of the United States.
Bingo. You nailed it. They want to get rid of the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. You get rid of that, the New World Order is born. Okay, bombshell story coming up next. Trust me, don't touch that dial.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 1 o'clock.